Hey, I'm Bishop.
And I'm Dr. Steph.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of Our Life, Our Journey.
Our truth.
Always happy to have you here on this particular platform, and we don't take it for granted. We say every single week how excited we are to meet people along the way who tell us that this is being a blessing to you. Some of you schedule your whole week around it, and we appreciate that. And for us, it just means a lot to be able to pour into you. We want to make sure that you, as you are watching this, you like, that you comment,
that you're subscribing,
Yeah.
and that you're sharing with your friends and family and get them to subscribe so we can really build this community up.
That's right. That's right. And we want to make sure you do that because that's going to help continue to keep this platform moving forward. It means a lot to us, and we thank you so much for that. Let me tell you, make sure you follow Dr. Steph at Dr. Steph Walker. Follow me at Joseph Walker 3 as we continue to just encourage you, and we want to stay connected. And of course, get our book, get all the merch. Go to josephwalker3.org. Check it out. It'll bless you, and we hope you'll do just that. Got a good one today, babe.
A little controversial.
And we're gonna have a little banter between us today on this one. What do you think?
Probably.
Yeah. So question is, can you be friends with an ex, or can you be friends with the opposite sex while you're married? That's a good question.
It's a good question.
Good
I think it
question.
comes up a lot.
Yeah,
in
a
relationships.
lot of people. Let's be very clear. It's something that I think there's a variety of different responses, and I know many
Different
of you right now
approaches.
sitting on the edge of your sofa saying, "Okay,
What they gonna
what they gonna say? How this gonna work out?" So I think it's important. First of all, let me just kind of set the stage. One of the things that's important, and becoming a couple of destiny is about becoming. It's about learning, and it's about oftentimes when you come into a relationship, there are ways in which you operate, things in which you've established prior to that relationship. When you come into a relationship, it's about learning your spouse, learning your spouse's pain points, learning your spouse's comfort levels, and creating a culture of transparency
within the relationship. Yes.
Because I think that's what then I think it leverages you to be able to be clear about some of the things that you may desire to do or not desire to do, etc. So I want to just kind of say that up front because none of this matters if there's no climate of transparency, right?
Amen.
So when we deal with that, here's a question. Like, let's start with the first one. Like, can you be friends with an ex? Still, be chatting, talking, cool. They moved on, you moved on, and
No, you can't
can
make that
happen?
assumption though.
Okay,
They
let's
moved
talk
on.
about it.
Like you can't make that assumption.
All right.
I think that's part of the problem in terms of the conversation, right?
All right, let's
And
hear it.
so
Let's hear it.
I think that this is just my opinion, right? And we'll probably agree to disagree or what have you, or maybe not. I think we're pretty much on the same page, at least in our relationship. When it comes to exes, I think a couple of factors play in. Like, how long? Is this like your ex-boyfriend from like high school and you're 40? You know what I mean? Is this your, ex-boyfriend from college and, he's since moved on, like you said, and you've since moved on? Or is this your recent ex who's still thirsty and still texting and calling, trying to figure out what happened and you've moved on?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or supposedly moved on? I think like it totally depends on the scenario or situation. If it's fresh, I think that you should probably do your best to cut ties, especially if you value the relationship that you're in currently, making sure that you're letting that other person know that they are your priority, as opposed to leaving those doors, those back doors, those windows open.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to look at it, and I agree with everything you said. And I think that sometimes, for example, there may be relationships you've had with people, and you met a person, you were younger, and the relationship ended. You guys moved on. You have families, and you realize, wow, we dated 20 years ago, and your family meets my family. It's like there's no romantic interest, nothing. You laugh about it. You were young. That's different than
Because now you're cool.
Yeah, you're cool.
That's
Hey,
different.
that's my
You're
ex. We
cool.
cool. Ain't
Yeah.
no, Google eyes. Ain't no
Yeah.
revisiting. But when someone has a serious relationship where it could have been, 5 years, and you're thinking about getting married, something happened, and then of course it broke off. Then that person, as you said, is still trying to figure out what happened, still thirsty,
yeah.
and you're trying to figure out, and you haven't, lost that romantic interest, you haven't lost the appeal you have for that person, even though you may be in a different situation, that opening that door can be a dangerous thing because that can allow things to creep in that you may not be able to manage. And so what my recommendation would be in those situations is just to keep that door closed. Don't allow access in that level because unless you're having conversations with that person that your spouse is present or aware of, because if you start creating that conversation back and forth, it's going to lead to a lot of conversations that you're not going to, a lot of problems. And so
And
just
I
be
think
honest
too,
about it.
like
Yeah.
you have to also ask yourself, okay, why are you trying to have these conversations with this person if you are married, especially if you're married?
Yeah, that's a good one.
Like therein lies the problem, right?
Yeah.
The why behind the what,
You know
right?
what? I got one on it though.
Okay.
I counsel people through this.
Go for
And
it.
I remember somebody saying to me in the counseling session, because I wanted to hear them say, I'm sorry. And I'm like, you can't live your life. But this is often a motivating factor. I'm talking because I can't move on until I truly hear them say, I'm sorry for what I did to you. Now, this person has a whole family, whole life, but they are still stuck in wanting to hear the person who hurt them say,
Be regretful,
be remorseful, be contrite. And sometimes that's a motivating factor, which I think is unhealthy, but it gives rise to why a lot of people do it.
But a lot of people would probably, aside from that particular situation,
Yeah.
if you're still in communication, that means you want something from that.
That's
And
exactly
sometimes
right.
it's not as benign as an apology.
Yeah, for sure,
Right. And
for
so
sure.
really it's asking yourself, well, why do I even have the desire to even want to be in communication with this person?
Yeah.
If it's a fresh relationship, if we broke up and we've moved on and I'm in a serious relationship with this person, or if I'm married, like I think that there's no reason.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think like for every marriage relationship, to each his own, right? We're not here to tell you what to do, but I think trying to figure out the why behind the what. Like if y'all are just cool because your families are cool and you've known each other since infancy and like whatever, that person will probably never be out of your life because of all the intertwining situations that you have. I think that's fundamentally different,
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
Than picking up the phone and calling him in the middle of the night, chit-chatting. Yeah. What? Why? What is that for?
What they do, baby? What they say?
Like, that is not necessary. And if you feel the need to do that, there is an issue or a problem when you're in a marriage. And I think part of it is figuring out what your spouse's level of comfort is. And if they're comfortable with you doing that, then by all means, do what you do, right? But if they're not comfortable, then your job as a spouse, whether you're the male or the female, is to make sure that you prioritize their feelings, their emotions, their boundaries, and respect that. Like, if I have friends and my husband is like, that's not, I don't appreciate that level of communication. Fine. The door is shut, sealed, cemented. I don't have a problem with that because this is my priority. When there's a fight going on about who I'm talking to and who I'm communicating with, who are males outside of my marriage, and I'm arguing with my husband about me wanting to leave that door open,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
You know, is it that there's something there? Is it that I just don't want him telling me what to do? I feel controlled. Like, we have to have those conversations about the why, you know? And so I think that that's fundamentally important because, I mean, I have ex-boyfriends from high school and college. We're cool. I don't call them. We're not communicating. They might DM and say, hey, how's the family? You know, the kids look great. Congratulations on this. Congratulations on the new job. Congratulations on your... Let me say this. If you're communicating with people of the opposite sex and they're not asking about your family and your spouse, that's a problem. That is a huge red flag. If your wife is having a baby and this girl on the side is, hey, how you doing? And everybody in the world knows that your wife is with child and she's not saying, how's your wife? How are the kids? How's your family?
Problem.
Tell the wifey I said hi.
Problem.
Then that's the setup.
Wow. That's real. That's deep. I mean, that's so real.
Yeah.
That's so real. And I think that, it's important, I think, to ask yourself what's in your heart.
Yeah.
That the
And
why
what
is
is
about what is your motivation, what is in your heart
yeah.
when you are in those situations, and ultimately, I think your heart won't lie to you. I think it'll be very true. I think the other part of this conversation is, which is a little bit more, I think, complex, is, you know, people have relationships or friendships. Let's say no romantic, just friendships with opposite sex prior to getting married, right? And then they get married. Can a person or should a person have friendships with the opposite sex while they're married?
I think it goes back to what we talked about a few minutes ago, just in terms of it depends on the comfort level of your spouse. Like, as women, I truly believe we have sixth sense. And some people would rather have a fraction of you than have none of you. And they would rather share you, even though you're married, than go find their own spouse. And so you have to be mindful of how real that is in today's society. And they might masquerade as a friend, but it's always not platonic. It might be platonic for you, but it may not be platonic on the other side. And there's always that potential for a slippery slope. Now, if this is like your childhood friend that you've been homies with since the beginning of time,
Yeah.
and you guys have proof that you guys have been friends from childhood, etc., and they're friends with your family, and then they become friends with your spouse, like, I think that's fundamentally different.
Yeah.
Like, having friends of the opposite sex who have no relationship
Yeah.
at all with your spouse.
Yeah.
We've been married for 16 years. If you start popping up new friends, that's my homie, that's my friend, that's crazy. Like, if that was your homie, that was your friend,
Yeah.
I would
You
have known
about
that
them.
person
Yeah.
since before we got married,
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
But
Yeah.
to say that's your homie and that's your
Yeah.
friend now,
Yeah.
I'm not. I was born on a Tuesday.
We had a
but
good
I was not
example of
born
that. I have a
last
good
Tuesday.
example of the previous one. Like, for example, I have a friend we both know from Southern in college, and she lives in Dallas, and she's like all things Southern.
Yeah.
And we know she's come here, stayed at the house, loves you, loves me, always asks about the
Super
kids,
cool,
super cool.
down to earth, super
And
inclusive.
those things like that,
Yeah.
those things like that means that these are people that if kind
Really
of
have your best interest.
ingratiate
Yeah.
themselves within your family, your children know them, you know them. It's like a open book. I think sometimes when you are, having these private conversations because you're concerned about whether or not your spouse may be comfortable, chances are, if you're concerned, they probably aren't comfortable.
And if you're concerned, chances are there's a reason to be concerned, right?
I would agree.
Like, if there's no concerns, then you'd be like, hey, I want you to be my friend so-and-so. Like, this is how I know we went to medical school together. We went to graduate school together, and da-da-da-da. And this is her husband. This is their kids, or, this is her mom, and, like, whatever. Like, being able to integrate people as friends, like, that's healthy. But to randomly, this is my friend, and that's just my friend, and this is our life over here, but that's my friend, that's a problem.
So essentially, what I think I hear what you're saying is, but just for y'all to hear, that every friend of you should be a friend of y'all.
Especially if they're the opposite sex. Yes. Because there's just the reality is there's some people's friends that you don't want to hang out with necessarily. Like, I would imagine, like, all his friends are cool. And I think that all my friends are cool with him too, right? And so, but that doesn't mean that he wants to, like, hang out with all of my friends. And I don't necessarily need to hang out with all of his friends. Do I need to know them, know who they are, know what they're about? Yeah. But do I need to go on dates with them? Not necessarily. Like, do I need to whatever? Like, do they need to hang out with me? No. But I shouldn't mind because they're his friends. Like, if they want to go somewhere and they're your friends, I should want to go simply because they're your friends.
I have a question, and this is for somebody watching, okay? And I promise you it's for somebody watching.
Okay.
So,
he's like, it's not for me.
No, it's not. No, because we've walked through this.
I know.
It's really for somebody. Like, so there's a person watching right now who says, okay, I have a friend and I'm absolutely positively like on God saying there's nothing, never has been nothing, but this person makes my spouse uncomfortable. But we've had a friendship for 10, 15 years, right? And I'm being forced to end this friendship because my spouse is uncomfortable. Is that fair?
So one, I don't think there's anything, I don't believe in being forced. There's no force,
No.
right? Life is about choices.
No.
And so if your spouse is uncomfortable, it's your responsibility to get to the bottom of why
That's
and
good.
to be able to communicate with one another to figure out the why. But you have to want to know the why. You can't just be like, well, it doesn't make sense that you're uncomfortable. She hasn't done anything. Rah, rah, rah. You have to be like, okay, honey, I love you. Help me understand what makes you uncomfortable. And whatever she tells you, you have to be willing to receive that
Yeah.
in its real, authentic form, right? Don't ask me if you're not going to do anything with that information. When I tell you, my expectation is that you're going to receive that as my truth. Whether you believe it or feel it yourself is irrelevant if that's my truth, right? As the spouse. And then, like, if I'm truly your priority, then I don't think it should matter.
Yeah.
Like, I would expect the same thing in return. And the thing is, though, you have to be willing to be reciprocal with this kind of situation, right? Like, you have to think, if I had a friend and we were really close and my husband didn't feel comfortable with that person, am I going to fight till the death and ruin my marriage to protect this person that I'm not married to?
Wow. That's good.
Or am I going to say, look, times have changed, people evolve. Love you, friend, but at the end of the day, I'm married now. My husband feels uncomfortable. I don't necessarily agree, but I respect him enough to, if I have to choose between you or my marriage and my husband, clearly I'm choosing my marriage and my husband. And if you don't feel comfortable choosing your marriage and your spouse, therein lies the problem.
There is, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so getting to the bottom of that, like, what is it about that you don't feel comfortable? Because at the end of the day, if you were going to choose that person, you should have married that person. Why are you not in that relationship? If that's your best friend, aren't you supposed to marry your best friend?
Wow. You heard that, right? Why are you looking at me like that? No,
Right?
that's real though, right? And that's
And
so.
I mean, maybe I'm wrong in other people's. I would love to hear this.
Comment section.
Yes,
Comment
for sure,
section.
comment.
What do you
Like,
think?
Like,
And-
I don't want to hear you talking about that's your best friend,
Yeah.
lover friend,
Yeah.
and I'm your wife.
Yeah.
I'm
How
not
about that?
down for that.
How about that?
But we would have discussed this hopefully before we got married,
Yeah.
and it would have been a deal breaker.
A deal
for me.
breaker. Yeah. Wow.
And like, you have to decide prior to you getting married what your boundaries are, and hopefully being able to discuss that. Because if you're just now in your marriage finding out about friends, best friends, that's a problem. That's a red flag, and that's the devil is a lie.
Oh.
And that's just my take on it. You can disagree. I would love to hear your take on it, but like, I just feel
This will
like
be good
that.
comment.
Yeah.
This will be, you guys have to load that comment section up. We're going to read every single one of them. Guys, this is the follow-up conversation.
yeah.
You know, one of the follow-up episodes we should do?
What?
Oh boy, you ready for this one? This is going to be, I think, one of the most powerful episodes ever. Can one person be all things to you?
No, absolutely not. But we can talk.
You saying
about
that?
Yeah.
Yeah. But then to that point,
Yeah.
right? The reason why some people have those friendships prior to, because that person is something to that person. And I don't mean this in a very negative or sexual way, that no one else is.
And you should be able to find that in your wife now,
Which now become
and your friends
which becomes
that are male.
Which becomes what? Maybe the male, I'm just being
Yeah.
advocate here. Maybe the male friends don't communicate. Maybe they're not sensitive in certain areas, and maybe the wife doesn't have an interest in those areas in a person's life, or the husband doesn't have an interest in those areas of life. And so it's like, I speak to this person because I'm not getting on their nerves. I'm not getting on their nerves, and I get on my nerves.
Well, and so
That is a
so
okay, yeah,
therein lies the problem,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So if I'm speaking to this person because here I am a male, I'm speaking to this friend because she doesn't get on my nerves. Red flag. Because you're using this person as an out from your marriage. Because if you're talking to this person because she doesn't get on your nerves, then by definition, you're not speaking to your wife because she does.
Wow. Isn't that something?
And that is a red flag.
Yeah.
That's how the devil uses people.
Yeah, that's so true.
And that's the slippery slope. Those
That's
are
so
the
true.
little foxes that in
destroy
terms
that.
of that destroy marriages.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just talking to her at work because she's a good listener. The devil knows your weaknesses. By definition, that means that the woman that's in your life is not a good listener.
Wow.
So you're using this person to fill the voids that this person was put into your life.
Supplemental
to fill,
relationships.
which is dangerous.
Yeah.
And so don't lie to yourself and say this is just a friend. This is your side wife, your fill-in wife,
Did you
your gap wife, your work wife.
stepwife
Yeah. Like, don't
or
suggest
husband?
that. And I mean,
Or husband?
Oh, yeah, or husband.
Oh my God.
Right?
Did you say
And because-
gap? Hold on. Gap, baby. Repeat that list again, baby. Your what?
I don't
Your
know what
gap,
I said.
gap wife, side wife.
Because basically you're
God.
using that person to fill the
I'm
void as opposed to speaking to
get
your
me.
spouse
Yeah.
or going to therapy to help you guys fill that gap or void
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
Right? It's so dangerous
Jeez.
to use people to fill gaps in your marriage. Now, if you are saying that's a void that you had prior to you getting married, like you got all these boys hanging out with you, they don't want to communicate like that. They think that that's soft. So you have someone that you can speak to. That's different. But you should be able to speak to your spouse in that way. That is so intimate
Yeah.
to be able to share your ups and your downs and what's bothering you and get to the core of who you are and the what and the why. That is very intimate. And if you are walking outside of your marriage to share that with someone else because they don't stress you out and they don't do this and they don't ask a whole lot of questions,
Yeah.
they're filling a void, and that is problematic.
You know what was very resonant to me, and I'll say this in conclusion. This is great. You mentioned gap. Something leaped in my spirit, right?
Yeah.
Watch this. So God put Adam and Eve in the garden.
Mm-hmm.
He put them there and gave them specific instructions, rules of engagement.
Mm-hmm.
Adam is doing his thing, and because he's not available emotionally at the moment and present in the moment, it creates a gap for the serpent
Little snake.
to come in, right? And the serpent is only attracted to gaps. Comes in because the conversation would have never happened apart from Adam. Had
If
Adam,
Adam
been
was a good listener, if Adam wasn't going to sleep right away, if Adam was staying up when it was bedtime, listening to his wife's grievances, he would have known Eve was hungry and was thinking about eating the apple.
Wow.
But because he was not emotionally present for his spouse, someone else was.
and they lost destiny, watch this, over a piece.
Honey, hush.
I'm Bishop.
And I'm Dr. Steph.
Till next time, peace out.